The Phantom Fellows, a point-and-click adventure game by Paul Corman, is out right now. I had the pleasure of beta testing this game, and Paul is a close friend of mine. I actually have a credit in the game, and a cameo, and an Easter egg, so I sat down with Paul for a completely unbiased interview. While you're watching, click the link in the description and buy the silly thing. So we're here with Paul Corman, the creator of the Phantom Fellows. How are you doing, Paul?
I'm lovely. How are you doing?
I'm excellent. So we're here to talk about the game that you made. You did make this, right? This was not outsourced.
One of my fragmented personalities made it, yeah.
So what can you tell us about the Phantom Fellows? What is it?
Okay. The tagline is it's about two best friends who start a paranormal investigation business together because one of them's already dead.
Phew. Nailed it.
Yeah, thank you. I've been typing it on Twitter for 3.5 years now. It stars Oliver. Oliver can see a ghost, which is Engelbert. I just came up with the idea in the sense of, like, if I could only see one ghost, what would I do? And I'm like, well, in like the real world, we still have to, like, you know, make money and like live and exist. So I'd probably start a business, try and exploit it or whatever. So yeah, there we go.
Where did this idea come from?
Well, I've been co-hosting this small adventure game podcast called the Classic Gamers Guild Podcast, CGG Podcast, and so it's just spending many years just being a total nerd about adventure games and like picking them apart, and so I more came at it less from a story to tell angle and more from like as a huge fan of adventure games, like what would be like my ultimate wish list. I really like games where you can switch protagonists, like, you know, Day of the Tentacle or Maniac Mansion or whatever, and I like when the different protagonists have different abilities and things like that. So it was really kind of going at it from that angle.
Gotcha. So what you mentioned a second ago that you wanted to throw in everything that you like about adventure games. What were those things? What is it that you like about adventure games that you threw into this?
I had this notion when I was a kid that, like, playing adventure games, it always felt like this massive open world. You know, at least in our memories, they're still almost preserved that way. So being able to travel around was really important to me. So I was like, let's do you know, where you can switch characters and they have different abilities. Let's open up the world. And I guess like the third element there was trying to scope out what I didn't like in certain adventure games or things that I hadn't noticed like an evolution of. And one of them was the puzzle logic, not accounting for what we would really do in real life. The puzzle might require a roll of tape, and you saw one earlier in the game, and you're like, if I could just go get that tape, this whole thing could be over with. We could keep moving through it, but they don't let you get the tape, so instead you have to, like, you know, chew a wad of gum and stick it to the thing, and whatever adventure game's logic goes on. The game's broken down into days, which are cases. And each time a case opens, you can go back to the previous location. So the idea is, like, when you go back, you're either going to find an alternate puzzle solution, like an object that you can use, or just some jokes, like some gags. Because I do want to reward the exploration. I didn't want them to go back to a previous location and trigger some old irrelevant conversation or generic dialogue. So it's like, you know, you should feel rewarded and like your time well spent for bothering to go back. And yeah, hopefully that's what they get.
And I imagine that was, you know, that added quite a bit to your workload in a game that's already quite long. Well, let me ask you about that. It seems like the trend for adventure games these days tends to be on the shorter side, like around 5 to 8 hours maybe, but you sort of went in the opposite direction. And my playthrough when I was beta testing it was around 15 hours. Was that a conscious decision to make it that long, or was that just this is how it developed and this is what it is?
The latter, for sure. Yeah, if anything, I was worried that it wasn't going to be enough game. At the end of the day, I was like, I think I just want to do a week in the life of, but I had no idea at all how long it was going to take. I just hoped that it would be at least 4 to 6 hours in that pocket you were describing. And then it turned out to be, yeah, I think it seems right now it's about 15 hours if you're playing to win, and mostly just playing as Oliver. And then there's a few testers were more like 22 hours if they're switching to Engelbert and, you know, discovering every, like, line hunting, basically finding every piece of dialogue and all the flavor text and all that.
Gotcha. Because, yeah, that is true. And you mentioned this earlier. You can switch. You have two characters to switch between. You've got sort of double the work on your part, but then it also means there's more for the player to discover if they want to.
You don't really have to constantly stress, like, which of the characters should I be. Like, it's usually pretty clear if you need to switch from Oliver to Engelbert.
Why should people play this game?
Right. Goodness gracious. How do I don't want to sound like pretentious or stupid. So where's the balance there? I put the writing first in this game. I think I had to learn how to program and I had to learn how to do pixel art to do this game. But writing was always one of my favorite things to do. Text-based conversation is kind of dominant in society now, and it never used to be. And that's changing the way that we communicate grammatically. I want it to feel more just real and normal and natural, like two dudes talking, and kind of like how we all talk nowadays. So yes, I'm not even sure what question I'm answering now, but that's maybe an answer to it.
The dialogue's very witty and very, very dense in places in a way that's rewarding to sort of unpack. The corollary to that, sometimes is, I'll be honest, like when I started to get tired, I had to stop playing the game because I just couldn't follow the dialogue anymore.
Right.
Because it is very bantery, it is very witty, and so you kind of have to, like, for better and for worse, you have to pay attention to it.
Yes. That's something I've noted, especially I think through some of your playthroughs too, where I was like, like lessons learned sort of things. I went back and cut so much, realizing that you can't just joke all the time. Sometimes just deliver the information, and I still could sharpen that blade.
So that's the writing. Talk to me about the art style in this game.
Well, as I was kind of flirting with making a game, the games that were really inspiring me and like drawing me towards actually making my own game was anything that Ben Chandler worked on. And he's like the main artist for Wadjet Eye. So you could think of Techno Babylon or just basically any of the Wadjet Eye games Ben's more or less been on. And in addition to Ben Chandler's work, would have been Thimbleweed Park was next. Seeing the contrast between the, like, modern lighting effects with old chunky pixels. I tried to make my art a bit louder than the ones before it as far as the lighting effects, and like I'm not hiding it at all, like just blasting it with glowing lighting effects and things like that. And it looks like what my memory sees when I think of old pixel art games. Like it just has this, extra bit of like glitz and glow and this wondrous element to it that our memories kind of add to it that makes it feel just, nostalgic and warm and fuzzy in our memories and things like that. And then one day I saw Dark Side Detective, which is essentially a bit of the elephant in the room when it comes to my game. It's almost like how a stage play is. You don't see the ground. And therefore, it's like truly 2D. There is no up and down walking. You just walk left or right. And I really like that for so many reasons. One, just like the really chunky pixels. I felt like the contrast with the lighting effects and the even chunkier, lower res kind of AGI, SCI, zero res art just looked so cool. And it also felt more accessible to me as somebody who had never done graphic art before. There's something about like more isometric designs and 3D-ness to most games that I was like a little scared of. And so, yeah, it was just like, this is a really cool perspective. I want to see more games like it. And I guess when I was playing Dark Side, I was like, I really want to be able to walk around. You can't actually like walk around it. And so that was kind of the inspiration. I'm like, I want to do Dark Side, but I want to be able to walk around it. Sometimes I get yelled at online about it, but for the most part, it's like, hey, man, like I'm happy to give them the credit. They pioneered this awesome perspective. And when you invent something really cool, people are going to come along and be like, hey, I want to do that too.
Talk to me about the music, because you wrote the music for the game too, right?
I did, yeah. Yeah, I guess on paper music's the only thing I kind of really did know how to do going into this. That was my profession before this, was like score writing and things like that. I'd always written just for fun. Writing was a hobby, music was my profession. So I knew all along I was going to do the music. At some point I kind of started regretting that. But luckily, because I neglected my little inner musician arty type, I like put that on the shelf for 3.5 years, that when it was time to do the music, it just like flooded out. And like it was like almost like a blackout. Like 3 weeks later I came to and the music was just done. I was like, whoa, okay. Okay, so I did want to ask you, is this the first game that you've beta tested? And I guess regardless of the yes or no there, what was it like beta testing a game?
Yes, this was the first game I've ever beta tested. It was a little intimidating at first because I wasn't quite sure what I was looking for. I'm confused as to why there's like another ghost right here. I don't quite get that. You had set up a Discord for it with very conveniently partitioned days and different sections for different parts of feedback, so that was really nice.
First, I was really excited when you agreed to beta test it, because it was almost like I was trying to pull off a heist, and like I had this list of like, of like people that I wanted, and you were literally at the top of the list because of your, I don't think I'm being melodramatic to say like your passion for breaking things and finding problems in old classic games. And I was like, man, there'd be nobody better than One Short Eye to go through this. So I'm curious, like when it did like break, and it did, was that like exciting for you? Was it a bit of a rush?
Yes. No, it was exciting to find those things, especially if there's like some funny visual glitch with it, or if it actually, like, I don't know, does something crazy or funny. The less interesting ones are things where it just like locks up for no reason and then you can't do anything. The short answer is yes. The long answer is what I just said.
That's a really interesting point. It's the first time that you've been able to find problems and break games, and it's not like 35 years too late to do something about it. So that must have been different too. Okay, I got one more question for you. An act of genius marketing. What would you tell people as far as why they should play the game?
It is witty, the characters are fun, the music's great, and my buddy Paul Corman made it, so you should go give him your money. It's got a neat atmosphere, especially with the music in there now. You have something that's sort of gently spooky, a little bit of fog. I really like the lighting elements in it. So now that people know that they absolutely need to buy this game, their life depends on it. Maybe I shouldn't say that. Where can they find it?
They can buy it on Steam and itch and GOG.